good evening, and welcome back to Gooner Gathering. My name is Posh Bertie, the poshest man in all of sports entertainment, and as you can see here, this isn't Gooner Lee Meads. Where's Gooner Gathering's founding father? Well, let me tell you, he is recovering from a magnificent evening last night at AEW All In at Wembley Stadium, and I'm sure he had the greatest time. It was a brilliant event. But yeah, from the subs bench today is a man who's been on this channel before. He says himself it's like bringing Nketiah on for Henri, but personally, I think it's more Canu. It's Dominic Palmer. How are you? And that's a compliment, by the way. How are you, Dom?
Canu was some player. Love the guy. Complete maverick as well. Yeah, I'm very well. I'm assuming we need to keep our voices down though for Lee because I'm assuming the hangover's still real. Is that the case?
I asked him that, and he said I can't remember what I said. Um,
Oh, dear
Emerson
me. But it's a
Cozier
pleasure to be on for him.
Emerson Cozier's in the chat. Good evening, Emerson. Look, obviously we're going to be here to talk about Arsenal's win over Aston Villa, possibly Nketiah and Marino stuff as well. Before we do, we're going to just shift gear for a minute. On a serious note, today we had very sad news that the former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson has sadly passed away at the age of 76, I believe. Obviously a very recognisable figure in football. He was England manager for quite a while. He was an experienced manager elsewhere and managed Man City for quite a bit as well. And also, I think it was last year, maybe even this year, he managed Liverpool for one game in a like a charity legends match, I think, which I thought was a nice touch. I mean, I got into football in 2007, so I wasn't there for the much for Sven's England tenure. Dom, do you have anything to say about Sven-Göran Eriksson? Do you remember it? I mean, obviously, do you remember him in charge of England at all or anywhere else?
Yeah, no. Yeah, echo your comments about Sven. I think by all accounts, and I know someone that's met him through their work and said he was an absolute gentleman, a scholar of the game, and a good tactician, a good manager who went very much decorated. Obviously, you remember Man City slightly, but I think the main thing that we remember him in this country for will obviously be his tenure in charge of England, first foreign manager to manage England. And he was England manager for a time when we had the golden generation, the Lampard Gerrard era, and that was a very, very good team. And I was talking to someone about that earlier today, actually, and I think Sven got 3 quarterfinals, which is nothing to be sniffed at. But I think he'd probably look back with a little bit, or would have looked back a little bit of regret that he didn't get more from that team. But he had a tough old task as well because it was a team reportedly full of egos and that sort of thing. And I think Sven could handle an ego very, very well. But it's different when you're not with the players all the time to sort of be able to sort of overcome that. But I think he did a decent enough job as England manager, and he certainly went about it in the right way. And his sort of dealings with people were always very professional, very polite, and I think he will be a big miss to the game for sure. And he also got to quarterfinals of the World Cup with Danny Mills at right back, by the way. Just
I mean, absolutely. AFC always in the chat says R.I.P. Sven. Absolutely. Gooner Gathering, Mr. Meadows. Good evening to you. I hope you had the best of times last night, you lucky so-and-so. AFC always says, good evening, fellas. Good evening, AFC always. Good to see you. Oh, and let's not forget Germany 1, England 5. Was that a friendly or was that a qualifier for something?
I think it was a qualifier. Emil Heskey, I think, scored at least one that day. He was up front with Michael Owen in the old big man, small man combination. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. But yeah, what a result that was.
And I apologise for making you feel old, but I think I was about 4 months old when that happened. Yeah. Good evening, Russ.
I was a tad older.
Good evening, Russ Morgan. The chat is very busy today. Excellent. So let's get into why the main reason why We're here as Lee Meadows tells the scorers. Michael Owen getting a hat trick, Gerrard and Heskey. So there we are. Technically, it's Liverpool 5, Germany 1, isn't it? Really, from that. But no.
Heskey might have still been at Leicester at the time. I can't remember, but he certainly didn't
Oh,
go to
okay.
Liverpool.
But yeah, we'll get to the reason why we're here, and that is to talk about a certain match that happened on Saturday, and that is, of course, the Arsenal, not Ebbsfleet, let's not talk about them. Arsenal winning against Aston Villa 2-0. Obviously, this was it was we were it was very nerve-wracking going into the match because Aston Villa are a tricky team to beat. We've said this before. Well coached, and their attack. Well, on paper anyway, their attack looks very good. And all this time, there was this debate about Emery versus Arteta. I even said that whilst, yes, Emery, I think, is the better manager, it's an unfair comparison because Emery has been around much, much longer, has managed more clubs, he's got more experience. I'm sure you'd agree with me on that.
Literally would have been, if you'd asked me word for word, what I'd have said. Emery's a better manager right now, but we'll see what happens when Arteta's been managing as long as Emery. I suspect it won't be the case at that point.
Absolutely. AFC always says the performance wasn't great. The result was massive. Yes, I agree. Like I said, it was one of those games, and I've said this consistently. It's one of those games where I don't care how we do it, we get the win and we run, because away at Villa Park is a tough place to go. At the moment, as I mentioned, but if we win, and that's all that matters, especially in games like this. So what were your thoughts going into the game? Were you as confident as Mr. Lee Meadows, or were you a bit nervous and cautious like me?
Probably nearer you. I didn't think we were going to get beaten, but I wouldn't have been shocked with a draw. I wasn't asked for a score prediction, thankfully, but I think I'd have probably, if you'd asked me for a winner, I'd have said Arsenal, but I'd have probably gone with the draw as my prediction beforehand for all the reasons you've just said. Villa Park, 5:30 kickoff, first game of the season, good side. I said ironically, I'd rather have faced them in October, November when the Champions League games are starting to kick in and they're starting to deal with that, which I think is a step up from the Conference
But
League
we also have to
last
deal
year.
with that.
Yeah, we do too, but I
Mm.
think our squad is probably more prepared and has that season of having dealt with it, whereas theirs hasn't. So I always felt that was going to be better, but we got them early, and look, it was a gritty performance. As people are
Mm.
saying, it wasn't a great performance, but I think these games you rarely do get a great performance. You're facing good sides, City away, Liverpool away, Newcastle, always difficult. Those sorts of games. I mean, Newcastle thrown in there a little bit above their level, but you know what I mean. They're difficult games. You don't necessarily get the opportunity to play the way you want to play, but you've got to go there. You've got to grind it out, and you've got to get the result. And we did that. We rode our luck at times. Ollie Watkins on another day has two, and it's game over. But reverse of last year, if you like, at the Emirates. But we got the 3 points and 3 points, and we're joint top of the league at this point, and that's all you can ask for.
Joint top of the league, I believe, with our opponents on Saturday. Brighton, I believe. So yeah, very interesting. This is what I mean, because I actually, this is a bit weird coming from me, but I think some of the negativity surrounding the final result seems a little bit forced, because I've said away at Villa Park, if you expected us to be absolutely dominant and smash them minute by minute by minute, then that's a little bit delusional, because it was always going to be a really tough game. Man City lost at Villa Park last season, so it's never going to be an easy game for us. But we did it, and as I said, I don't care how we did it. We'd win the game. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. I think I think the negativity, and we might come on to this later, probably comes around the frustrations in the transfer market,
Mm,
which I also think are slightly overdone, but we can argue
we'll
about that
get
in
to
a
that
bit.
in a minute.
But I think some of that seeps in because the negativity was there after the Wolves game as well. And again, these early season games, particularly in a summer where players are coming back at different times, means that the managers aren't quite as prepared for new season as they might otherwise be. But even when they are fully prepared for the new season, it does. There's a difference between training and friendlies and the matches, and it takes that time to get that groove. So I think you just want to grind them out and get the wins. So I was just delighted with the win, and I'm not worried about the performance. If we're playing like this in October, then yeah, sure, you start to worry a little bit about performances, but. Right now it's just about getting the points, and that's what we've done with a very, very, very tricky away fixture out the way, nice and early.
Yes, I mean our next two away games are tough as well. Spurs away and City away. AFC away says Havertz did nothing. I know it's almost as if we need we need a striker or something. And
I think
Guna,
I slightly disagree actually with that. So I think in terms of setting up goals or scoring goals, which is obviously what you want him there for. But he's 2 games in and he's got a goal and an assist for it. But he worked incredibly hard as he always does off the ball. And I think you also sometimes have to give. And if there's a comment below, and I was thinking along these lines, there has to be some credit sometimes to the Villa defenders who did defend very well and denied him a lot of space. I mean, you can talk about the clinicalness, and there was that, again, that sort of cross in. I think it's Martinelli towards the near post where gets his feet slightly wrong and can't, direct it goalwards. But that was probably his only real chance of the game. But I'm not. I wouldn't be judging Havertz entirely on that one performance either. I mean, he wasn't brilliant. It was an average performance from him. But I think to say he did nothing is slightly unfair.
AFC always also says I think it was the right time to play Villa. Yeah,
Always
I
is when you
mean,
get 3 points.
personally, we'll get to your comment about Martinelli in a minute. AFC always when we talk about the Trossard goal, we'll get to that. Yeah, I mean, personally, yes, our first 3 away games are tough, but if we're gonna pick, I'd rather play those first than have to wait until April or May to play those 3 away games. Personally, uh, it's a case of getting them out the way. I mean, we have to win them by any means necessary, but I would rather play Villa, Tottenham, and City in August and September than April and May as our last 3 away games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you gave me the choice, you definitely want that.
Mm.
I'm not sure you want them the three back to back as your three away games, but it is what it is, and you got to play them at some point. So once they're done, right?
Yeah. So we said it was a tough game, and well, I don't know the exact minute, but it was around near half time. We were very, 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 very close to going 1-0 down. I would say we were extremely lucky there. There was a bit of a defensive mix-up, very rare usually from us. I believe was it Gabriel who gave it
Gabriel, yeah.
away to Morgan Rogers, who had an excellent game against us. And Ollie Watkins was basically through 1-on-1. Raya went the other way, took the shot, and it went wide. That, I mean, if you had to define heart in the mouth moment, it would be that. Because 9 out of 10 times, Ollie Watkins puts the ball into the net when he gets in that position. But good God Almighty, he didn't. Were you at all? Were you shocked by that? Do you think, oh, we got away with it there?
Yeah, look. I think first you have to give credit to Villa's press. Actually, that press at that point. I mean, their press throughout the game was actually very, very solid. But at that point, it was excellent. That's what allows Gabriel to get caught on the ball. Was that press? And as you say, it's a rare defensive error, which is ironic given we've just kept 2 clean sheets. But yeah, not. I think you're being a bit unfair on Ollie Watkins there. I think he scores that 99 times out of 100 rather than 9 out of 10.
Yes.
It's one of those lucky moments where you take your luck, and he scores that every time for the rest of the season if he gets the opportunity every game. I think possibly slightly lucky that maybe he's a little bit rusty coming back late from England. I thought our England players looked a bit rusty as well, Rice in particular. You know, having come back late, whether it's sort of catching up with them all a little bit. But it was a stroke of good fortune, as was what a save, by the way, from Raya. But he's got half a
Yeah.
goal to aim at for that one as well, where Raya makes that, very impressive instinct save. But
Yeah, that's my next note actually. In the second half, there was I think it was Onana went for the shot. It deflected off one of our players. It looked like it was gonna go right into the net there. It hit the bar. Ollie Watkins was there for the header. Raya super save. Uh, me and Mr. Meadows in the chat along compared it to David Seaman against Sheffield United.
Pescatalido,
Um,
the Pescatalido
uh,
save.
yeah, I think it might have been. It was against Sheffield United. David Seaman saved that. But yeah, now I was told last season, even in the latter stages of last season, Raya's not really a good keeper. He just gets saved by our defence. Our defence make him look good. And they're very quiet, these people, because I knew, Raya deserved the Golden Glove because he was very good in goal last season. And now I think he's got better because he made a terrific save against Wolves and possibly one of the best saves I've seen in a long while against Villa. Yes, people said maybe Watkins should have done better, but you've got to give credit to David Raya there. Don't you agree?
I
Got
think you're
to.
exactly right. Watkins has got to do better, but Raya still has
Mm,
to make that set. And also, Watkins probably thinks he's scored if he just puts his head on it because Raya's on the floor behind the goal.
mm.
He's got to get up, and it's not like Watkins is 20 yards out. He's what, 7 or 8 at most. I mean, it's difficult to know which save was better, his one last week or the one this week. I mean, it's probably just about this
Mm.
week, but I was saying to someone, I think the three best saves I can remember in the Leno, Ramsdale, um, and Raya era. He's are the last two, and that one, I think it was James Maddison's free kick that Ramsdale got a
Oh
couple
yeah,
of years ago.
Leicester. Yeah.
Um, you know, they're incredible saves. And I think Raya's a really good goalkeeper. I questioned the wisdom of it slightly when he came in because I thought there were other areas that you could look at, given the difference between the two. I felt at the
Mm.
time was not massive, given that Ramsdale was still not at his peak at this point. Keepers obviously come a little bit later, but his ability from crosses is very, very good. He's very good with his feet, very calm, and I think that in turn actually helps the defense. So people are saying our defense make him look good. I think he also helps our defense look good because of his calmness behind him and that confidence. I might be 5'2", but I played at the back, and I always felt when I had a good goalkeeper behind
So
it,
you were like
you always
Lisandro
felt that bit.
Martinez then?
Yeah, except shorter. Although I'm very tall for a hobbit, which is why I played at centre half. But yeah, but when you had a good goalkeeper behind you, you felt more comfortable and confident as a defender, and I think it works both ways. But we didn't necessarily see the big saves from the last season. Boy, have we seen it so far this year. And I think if I was an opposition player right now, I'm thinking, God, that Arsenal defence is good. Look how few goals they gave away last season. And now you're thinking, God, if we do beat the defence, Raya is capable of saving them as well. You're like, oh, gee, how are we going to score? And I think that's a real psychological advantage there that we may well have. And I think that's a real positive coming out these. Man of the match deservedly for those saves, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Funny because Lee in the watch along asked me who was my player of the match, and I said Raya. About 3 minutes later, Sky Sports gave David Raya player of the match. I'm not saying they watch us, Sky Sports, but there are signs. Good to see you,
I mean,
Jamie Carragher.
move over Super Saturday, Soccer Saturday.
Oh, so I even said all we need is a bit of a moment of magic to actually get in the lead when it comes to games like this, and we got it in the form of Saka just about pulling it back. It was about to go out of play, the ball, but Saka just about kept it in, and he found the man who came on the bench for Martinelli almost seconds afterwards, Leandro Trossard. Trossard put it in the back of the net. His first touch, I mean, people said that Martinelli had to come off. He wasn't having a good game. Trossard instantly comes on, doesn't even celebrate, which some of the conspiracy theorists are saying, oh, is he saying to Arteta, yeah, I'm the man here?
That did
But
my
yeah,
head in. That.
Trossard 1-0. He's a big game player, isn't he?
Oh, I think so. I think he's the best finisher we've got at the club as well. Without doubt. I think on that whole thing. I think this is what you want in your squad. You want players like that don't necessarily play every week, but can come in and produce good moments. And if you can rotate them in and out. And I think I still really like our options on that left wing. I think Martinelli is lacking confidence at this moment in time. And you could see that when he failed to take on that young defender when he came on for Matty Cash. You're thinking just go at him, go at him. And I think if Martinelli gets a goal, I think that confidence will come back. But what I really love about these two options is that you've got different types of players. If you've got the high line, and Villa didn't set up quite as I expect them to, and I think it's where you had to give Emery credit and that defence credit, because I think Martinelli does struggle against sides that are that slightly bit deeper. He wants the space to operate in, which they gave him at times. But Trossard right now is in fabulous form. I think he has to start against Brighton.
Yeah,
I think it's a
yeah.
game for him as well. You know, I think ironically, I would bring Martinelli back in for Spurs with that high line that they have, and start Martinelli at Spurs, because Spurs will have to come at us. But for Brighton, it's his old club. I think tactically, he's the right player to unlock Brighton. His skill set matches
Mm,
the opponent's sort of deficiency slightly more, and he's just in great form. And you have to reward that performance. And I think that will be the change that will be made for Brighton. But yeah, as you say, in moment of magic, we had it at one end with Raya, and then a few minutes later at the other end with Trossard. And you say first touch.
yeah.
But I think the celebration, he's fallen out with Arteta, and I've heard people saying if Trossard leaves because he's fallen out, Arteta has to go. I was like, come on, like you don't even know they've fallen out. I mean, but I think he is sending a message. But yeah, you want players that are upset they haven't started the game, right?
Yeah.
If everyone wants to start the game, that can only be good for Arsenal, not for Arteta because he's got to make the decision. But
A lot of fans are now beginning to turn on Gabriel Martinelli. Now, I know Martinelli is a good player. I know that he can be a good player. We've seen it before, but some of last season and now this season, I don't know what's happened. Something's happened to him. He's not the player that we know he can be, and I do think he needs to be dropped for Trossard. And where do you stand on Martinelli? Do you still believe in him, or do you think something's wrong? Like, you
I,
know what
I
I'm
think
trying to
I
say?
yeah, I know exactly what you're trying to say. I think it's a pet peeve of mine that we tend to scapegoat people, right? Last season it was Zinchenko. This season it appears to be Martinelli and Party to an extent. People are going mad about Party, and then he goes and scores, and suddenly he's the hero. It's like, well, which is it, right? I think Martinelli, as I said just a minute ago, I think it's confidence, right? He seems to be lacking confidence. You know, I think there might be a little bit in the sort of left wing's inconsistencies last season, but that applies to Trossard. But that experience probably helps Trossard slightly with that. But I think the big thing is confidence. I think he's not scored in a while. He was in and out a bit with his injuries last season. Trossard's form, also impacted his game time, rightly so. So, but I think a goal for him and he comes good. But I think the other thing is, and there's a sort of saying in the NFL for anyone that sort of follows it about how players can come in season one and absolutely light up the league, and then season two struggle slightly. They call it the sophomore slump. And I think maybe there's a bit of that from where he broke through, that actually teams play against us differently now. They do play that little bit lower, further back, and he has to then learn to undo that rather than just relying on his pace to go past people. He's got to find a different way, and he's got to learn and adapt to that. So I think probably they're the two things, that are there. But Trossard right now has to come in for the next game, no question.
Yeah, Emerson says, did you see Zinchenko's face when he was on the bench? Yeah, he didn't look very happy. Maybe if you played like an actual left back, maybe you'd get a chance, mate. But anyway,
Depends on what he's being asked to do as well, right? I mean,
uh,
it's a bit like when we changed the goalkeepers, isn't it? Him coming in at left back allowed us to change the way we play. I think it's the evolution of the team now has meant that he has been sort of superseded by probably Calafiori and Timber because they can offer what he can offer pretty much going forward with, well, I don't think he's a
Yeah.
bad defender. He's not as bad as he's made out to be, but the other two are clearly superior defenders.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Thomas Partey just briefly there. We're going to get to this now. We were cranking up the pressure when we were 1-0 up, and Thomas Partey got a very rare goal. He actually didn't sky a shot over the bar for once.
I know.
It
I thought
went.
that when that ball came
It,
back to him, I was like, oh, it's going over.
it, it went in the back of the net. Some say, yeah, okay, Martinez should have done better. I get that, but it was 2-0, and it was a nice goal from Partey. Now, you mentioned people scapegoating him. Yeah, it's funny because I remember during the Wolves game, people were saying, "Oh, he's had a good first half. Yeah, he's looking sharp." And he makes one mistake in the second half. Get him off. Get rid of him. He's washed it. He's passed it. Then he sets up the second goal, by the way, which Saka scored, but no one said anything about that. Go figure. But he scores. He scores against Villa, and yeah, haters were silenced. What again? 2-0. Great goal from Partey, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's slightly fortunate. Martinez probably has to do better, but he's kept it down and he's put it in the corner. And that's you're putting it there. You're always asking a question of a keeper. I thought he was good in possession. I think that goal will also help his confidence, but I also think he's a player just trying to re-find his feet again, having missed a lot of football again, with injuries,
Mm.
and that's been the big problem for Thomas Partey that we all know, which probably makes this his last season. I thought he struggled slightly out of possession, but wasn't bad. But I think a bit like when we were talking about how Havertz earlier, I think credit has to go to the Villa midfield as well, who were really, really excellent. And Rice not at his best alongside makes more of an ask of Partey. I think Partey's still a good player. I think he's probably not the player he was 2 years ago. The
No,
injuries are starting to take the toll.
I was saying to Lee, I don't think he's got 90 minutes. He played the full 90 minutes against Villa, but it's not. He's not going to play like 90 minutes in every game now. I think he's got to that age where he can. He's
Yeah.
still a good player, but he might be limited now.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're asking what our best midfield probably looks like in 6 weeks' time, it's Rice, Moreno, and then Odegaard. But that means you've got Thomas Partey as your player to come in, and that's not a bad player to
He's a
come
good
in.
backup.
And it also means you're limiting his minutes, which might help with the injuries. And I think Moreno will probably be sort of take Thomas Partey's place in the squad after next summer. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I think it shows the depth we're really building now, and that's why I'm quite confident for title hopes that he's now no longer the starter, and he's still. And while he's not the player 2 years ago, he's still a very good player with those crew. He can break up play. He's still relatively strong and powerful. Probably the area he covers is less than it used to be, but he can break the lines of a pass. And I think the more and more teams we play with a low block, etc., that ability to do that will be very crucial from that six.
And for the last 10 minutes, Timber came off, which is good that he's getting. Arteta was saving, using his minutes wisely, and Calafiori came on. Did he do much? But did you see
Didn't
anything
see
from
much.
him?
He looked good, didn't he? It was 10 minutes cameo, but he was all
Oh,
over the place.
that wasn't me being sarcastic. I didn't really. I thought he was okay. Didn't do anything bad. But yeah.
But I think what was interesting about him was, I mean, I haven't seen his heat map, and his touch map, but he must have touched the ball on the right, on the left, in the middle. He was moving all over the place,
Oh no, he's
and
not
getting
going to
the
be
ball.
inverted, is he? Oh no, no.
Yeah, of course he is. But Moreno coming in to sort of almost be that Granit Xhaka's type means that you've got that option coming in from there. So he didn't have a amazing amount to do, but he's got 10 minutes. He's got his
Yeah.
debut, and his ability on the ball, I think, could be really, really crucial going forward. And if he defends like he defended in Bologna or for Italy, then I think that looks a good signing.
But when I
But as
saw
you
him
say, it's 10 minutes, right? It's
when I saw him defend for Italy, he scored an own goal. So let's not. I don't want to see any.
We've all scored own goals.
Yeah, I don't want to see any of that. Okay, so we've talked about the Villa game now. 2-0 win. excellent, important win. We're going to play Brighton. We'll do a preview show on for that on Friday. Myself and if I'm not sure Mr. Meadows will be. I don't know. We'll see. For the preview show will be happening on Friday. So now moving on. Monday, 26th of August, and still no announcement from Mikel Merino. Apparently, it's done. He's an Arsenal player. But for God's sake, we're getting an Oasis reunion before the announcement of Merino. Like, are you not a bit? I was waiting so much to make that reference. Aren't you? Are you like bothered by how long it takes to A, sign a player for Arsenal, and B, wait till the announcement's made? Like, it's just does it do your head in like it does with me?
What does my head in is people going on about how long it takes for us to do transfers. I think, look, I think transfers take different amounts of time. We see some transfers with Arsenal done relatively quickly. Timber, Havertz, Trossard himself was done quite quickly. Some take longer. I think we probably negotiate harder than some other teams. And I also think that, it's really important that we are following every Arsenal move really closely, but not quite so much with other teams. And we saw Liverpool sign a goalkeeper, the Georgian goalkeeper, today. Well, that started before. That started at the same time as Calafiori. So it's not just us that take our time over things. I know they got a new regime there. The sun's just come out. I look like an angel. But the sun will go in a minute. There we go. Yeah. But so it doesn't frustrate me. And I think I saw a stat the other day that some statisticians did, which said that Chelsea had overpaid by 200 and something, £300 million for their players since Todd Bowley, and in that same period we'd underspent on player value by about 150 million. So, and I think those things will allow us to do more in the window. But I do understand the frustration because you're just desperate as a fan to get those players in. I think the bit that probably frustrates me more is we know Merino is an Arsenal player. We know he almost certainly passed his medical on Friday or Saturday, and the club haven't announced it. He almost probably certainly trained today. He won't be in any photos of training today, but he almost certainly trained today. And it's just like, that's the bit that frustrates me. It's like, we all know it's done. Can we just announce it?
Yeah.
But I think it is important that these deals are done properly, and sometimes they are more complicated than others. You look at Calafiori, there were complications between Basel and Bologna. Also, Arsenal knew they were the only side left and therefore could get the deal they wanted rather than the deal Bologna wanted. So I think that all those things have to be taken into account. But I understand the frustration, but it is what it is. And ultimately, we generally get our player, and ultimately, we get a good deal. So I'm not concerned. But there we go.
Okay, Emerson is in the chat. He's in the know. Is Emerson? He says Merino is done and his welcome video today. Jesus has had an MRI scan today, just waiting the results as it's press day.
I have heard that Jesus will be back after the international break. That it's not serious.
Okay.
I've heard Charles Watts reported that. I heard I think Tom Canton reported it, and I think I've heard it from a couple other journalists today that is what they're hearing out of Arsenal. But this is not a serious injury, and we're talking days rather than months with it. So hopefully that's correct.
Well, I will just have to wait and see. Right, let's talk about this, shall we? Let's talk about the never-ending saga involving Edward Nketiah. 1 minute he's going to Marseille, the next it's all screwed up. 1 minute he goes to Bournemouth, next it's all screwed up. 1 minute he's almost certainly going to Nottingham Forest. Suddenly Eddie, for some reason, blocks the move, if that makes sense. But now he's all of a sudden going to Crystal Palace. Now, there'll be lots of Eddie the Eagle puns, won't there, if he goes to Crystal Palace?
Nice.
But
you're on fire today.
But usually it's Lee that does all the jokes, and now I can steal his thunder. But This is why I'm so sceptical whenever I see, the agreement's now been reached for Eddie Nketiah, 30 million. We heard this at Nottingham Forest and the deal was off. Do you see why I could be sceptical?
Yeah, I think you're right to be. You know, I always say to people, don't always believe what you hear. I'm always believed that Eddie Nketiah was going this window. I also felt that Arsenal. I don't know why. I also felt that Arsenal were going to get more than the Marseille offer, and I was very, very calm when the Marseille offer was rejected and the deal fell through. I've always felt that there was going to be interest from Brentford, Palace, Everton, Forest, Southampton, Leicester, possibly. You know, lots of teams. I'm not saying all of those teams. I
Yeah.
just felt there was a market for Eddie Nketiah, and I think that's the right level for him. I think he'd go and have a decent enough career at that level, and I think we'll get the £30 million and say thanks very much. You know, people are saying, why did we do the new contract? Well, we've cost us around 10 million for 2 seasons, and we've made 30, so that's 20 million profit. I'll take that all day long. Thanks very much, because the alternative is him walking out the door. I Yesterday I got irritated because I saw a lot of people going, "Oh, another Edu masterclass, it's fallen through." Well, it turned out it wasn't Edu
It's
and
Eddie's fault,
Forest.
really, wasn't it?
Eddie Nketiah rejected the deal. What we don't know though is why he rejected the deal. Was he offered too little money? I don't know. Did he not like the offer that Forest was saying about his role in the team, or was he aware through his agent and stuff that Palace were interested and were going to match the Forest valuation? Now, yesterday I didn't know that, but today I think you're starting to think, oh, is that coming through? Because he's a London boy, it means he can stay in the city, etc., etc. Maybe that was there, and maybe that's why it fell through. But I think this one, I'm very confident will go through. I was confident Forest would go through, but I think this will go through, and Eddie will get the move, and we'll take the 30 million, and that's great news.
Palace a level above. Oh, Forest called a Palace
Forest, yeah.
move previously. And
I
obviously
thought
it's
Palace at the
important.
start of the season. Actually, Lee, I'm with you. I for some reason thought it was going to be Palace. I thought that last year that he was going to Palace when he left. Always have
Mm.
found.
Do you think, though, if we took the 27 million offer from Marseille, we would have had a lot more time to get us to sign a forward?
No, no, I do
Because
not
we've got
believe.
we've got a few days to go until the window ends, and you know what we're like with negotiating. We do take a while.
I,
So
th- I'm quite relaxed, right? I think firstly, you've done your homework before the window. You're doing your homework throughout it. I think there's always been a confidence that Eddie Nketiah was going to go, and therefore, if if he was crucial to him to us going forward, was Eddie going, I think Arsenal have done their homework. I think they'll have reached out to people. They'll have seen, is Isak available? No. Okay, we're moving on. They'll have an idea on what it takes to get Gorkarez or Osman, or is Williams interested, or other options like that. So I think we'll have been doing our homework. And Arsenal have a reputation for being very quiet about these things and not a lot leaking out, which is ironic when we've been discussing
yeah,
Moreno
the
and
Raya move
Calafiori.
came out of nowhere last season.
So did the Vieira move. Havertz, we knew about it a few days before. I mean, about 4 weeks before it was announced, because we took 3 weeks after it was a here we go to, announce Havertz. But, it was, et cetera, et cetera. But, these moves came from with very little notice, generally speaking. So I'd be very shocked if Arsenal haven't been doing some homework and some pre-work here. Just because we don't know about it doesn't mean they haven't. I
But
would say if we don't sign
yeah.
someone, that's a concern, but I think we will. I think even if it's a loan to see us through the season, because the man we want isn't available now, I think something will happen.
Because I will say, for the 5 millionth time, we do need a striker, and I know people will say, "Oh, but we beat Villa without one," and all that. There will be games. There will be games this season where our lack of striker, if we don't sign one, will cost us. Because Havertz and Jesus aren't clinical 20-goal a season strikers. And there will be games where our lack of striker will cost us, much like last season. That's what I think.
Well,
Um,
I can understand that. I think there is a big if to this next statement on Havertz, which is it's a small sample size of 20-ish games where he's played as number 9, but his stats are comparable with Haaland. Now, I don't think that continues, right? Because Haaland's a machine. But I think what his stats do show is that he's going to he'll get you 20 goals if he plays as number 9. So I think
I
if
think
if we're
he
bringing
has a
one forward,
ceiling. He has a ceiling, I think. That's the thing with Havertz.
I
And I
mean
don't think 20
all
goals is
players
that
have a ceiling.
ceiling.
All players have a ceiling. If I was a betting man now and he stays fit and he stays on number 9, I think Havertz gets you 20 goals this season. I really do. I think if we're bringing in a forward, and I don't see it being more than two, I would put my money more on a wide forward coming in than
Yeah.
a centre forward at this moment in time. I think the forward we want is Isak, and he's just not available this
Yeah.
summer. And do you know what? If it comes down to it, and it turns out that's a bit like with Jesus when we didn't go in for him in that January window because we wanted him in the summer. I think if that turns out and Isak comes in next year, and we've I'm quite happy with that. If it rather than go and sign someone else that you don't want this window, but I think a forward of some description must come in on that. I'm agreed with pretty much everyone.
Yeah, AFC always says I think we'll sign a winger, not a striker. A backup for Saka is another priority as well because I don't want him getting run into the ground again this
Who do you think that
season.
is, by the way? Because I think this is like Tottenham's problem with signing a backup for Kane. Who wants to be Saka's backup?
Well, it's important to have good squad depth, and I would
I agree, but
rather
it's difficult, right?
Lookman. If we can, I think we can afford him. We actually pay the money. We actually put the right offer in. None of this add-ons and tense negotiations nonsense because there's not enough time. I reckon he'd be a good backup to Saka, and because Saka does need the competition, I think, to step him up that level.
Yeah, you don't want to
Not
come in and
Raheem
buy.
Sterling.
On loan, I wouldn't be against it, but it wouldn't be my first choice. But I think
Mm.
what you want is someone, as you say, someone like a Lookman that can play another position so his minutes aren't totally on the right. I mean, Rafinha coming in, I think could be that. But if I'm Rafinha, do I want to come in, be Madison's backup? Not Madison, Saka's backup.
Saka.
No, I don't, because I can only really play on the right wing. But someone like Lookman could get minutes on the left at centre forward. He's more of a second striker than a number 9 on his own, or on the right. And it doesn't have to be him, but I think someone of that ilk is probably where we should be looking for that, because signing at the right level on the right wing is tricky because whoever you are, unless you're possibly Mo Salah, you're always going to be the second choice to Saka, right?
Yeah. I know it won't happen, but Kingsley Coman, we've been linked with. What do you think of him as competition for Saka? There
Um,
you go. Coman or unknown player that's not being mentioned.
yeah, I mean Coman, I think is a good right winger. I'm concerned about his injury, so I'd only want it to be a
Mm.
loan, and I think the
Again,
other
backup
uncertainty
player,
around.
so maybe the injuries might be
Yeah,
limited.
yeah,
This is
exactly,
what, this is what I
which
argue
might
about
help.
Pedro Neto.
Yeah, yes, but I think if you're, I'm not signing that player on a permanent, because then I'm stuck with them if their injuries do get worse. And I don't think there's a guarantee because you play less that you don't get injured. You might. I think it might help. But on loan, I'd be okay with Coman. I think the other danger with Coman is obviously the fact he's never played in England, but I think his level is the right level if it was
Mm.
comparable for his form in Germany came to England. I
You
don't think
say,
that would be a
yeah.
problem, but that they would be the question marks over it. But as a loan, I'm more than happy with that.
I mean, you say he's never played for England, but neither has Calafiori, neither has Marino. So there's
No,
no difference
exactly.
from our
No,
transfers now.
but it adds some risk, right? Which is how will they adapt, right? And that applies for them. But they're the question marks you would have. But I don't think
Mm.
there's such big question marks, certainly on a loan deal, that I'd be against it. It's a bit like Raheem Sterling. I would be okay with that on loan. I wouldn't want that as a permanent transfer. I think at 29, you're lumbered with a contract for 2-3 years, and you probably can't move him on. Whereas you bring him in for a season on loan, I can live with that. His underlying numbers at Chelsea aren't actually that bad. I think he was their third highest goal and assist score last season, which isn't saying much because Chelsea were shit. But
Language, Timothy.
so I do apologise. But as a loan deal, that's the type of market you're in, where they're not expecting to play every week. They're at a good enough level they
Mm.
can provide the competition, and you're not lumbered with them, keeping your powder dry for next year where Nico Williams might be available. I think he's going to go to Barcelona, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. That sort of player.
Yeah, AFC always says you watch. It will either be Sterling or Mudryk on deadline day.
I really
It will
don't want
more
Mudryk.
likely be Sterling out of those two. And can we go? No, I hope not. I want us to go one season without signing someone from Chelsea. I know it's impossible with Edu, but just one season without signing a player from Chelsea. Like, please.
We didn't sign someone 2 years ago, did we?
Unless it's Cole Palmer, I'd take Cole
Yeah.
Palmer, but that's about it.
Yeah, you're struggling slightly, are we? I mean, I'll take Levi Colwell, but not now. We've got Calafiori, right? You know, you don't need him now. But speaking of left centre half, do we think Kivior might be moved on? And would you? Let's say 20 million.
Hmm.
Would you move him on?
Yeah, I think it's likely that he might be going, but again, it's a case of wait and see. I
I
think
wonder if
probably
Palace
for
might come in for him. Move Gahey to the right side because he's right-footed anyway.
if Gay stays at Palace, that is.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, if he doesn't, then Palace will need one. You know, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Joachim
Well,
Anderson replacement
yeah,
because
I
they've sold
mean,
it.
we seem to be. I think Palace fans be saying, "Why are we signing Arsenal cast-offs?" Because they got Rob Holding off us. They might be signing Nketiah, and they might sign Kivior. So,
Well, they're sort of
blimey.
stepping up the levels, aren't they, through the signings? But do you think we'd be short if we sold Kivior? Because I don't. Because I don't see Tierney moving out. Because who's signing him while he's injured?
It's just it's if
Is
Saliba gets injured, that's the issue.
well, it's
But mind you,
Timber
you
or
can
White
always
who
play either
Timber or White
Calafiori or Timber at centre back. But then you might
or you
need
know
a
or
left back
White.
to replace that player.
Well, let's say Saliba goes out. Obviously, he's irreplaceable because of his quality. But suddenly, you can
Yeah.
move White from right back and bring in Tomiyasu or Timber, or play Timber at right back. You know, right centre half. You know, I think you've got the options there.
Mm,
You know, I'd be concerned if Saliba's out, but that's because he's just that good a player, right? You
yeah.
can't replace
That
William
last
Saliba.
ditch tackle he made in the Villa game, by the way. Oh,
Oh, at 2 nil.
superb.
You know, the game's won still at that point, pretty much, and he's still there.
Mm,
I think that's what I
yeah.
love about this defence, right?
Mm. Yeah, doesn't Kivior want to go and play in Italy? Well,
I
there are rumours, but I don't know. I don't know.
apparently his wife you know, is very keen to return, and he's certainly open to it. I think, you know, I think there are options where I wouldn't be shocked to see him go, but I don't think Arsenal are necessarily in a hurry to sell him. But I wouldn't be worried about on numbers if Kivior moved on, because I think Tierney stays, although he's obviously got to stay fit as well. But
Mm.
you know, but there's a versatility in the defence where you've then got, you know, 6 other defenders if there's an injury go down to one of them, where they can pretty much interchange for each other. There's enough depth there.
Okay, well, I think we've talked about all the stuff that's on my notes. I think that might be it for today. You will
I'll
be
go one
your
last question for you, Bertie.
oh
Who
yes.
who would be your ideal if one player? Let's say Moreno's done. If Ramsdale moves on, we know where Jean Garcia is going to be the man coming in. So don't worry about them. But let's say there's one player comes in. Who would you realistically, but ideally, like to see come
Mm.
in?
Well, realistically, but ideally, a backup for Saka.
Yeah,
Or
just interested in a name if you had one.
I know you'll say that this is not a backup level player, but Nico Williams. Um,
Oh, that would be my ideal, and I don't think it's
yeah,
beyond the realms of possibility. I don't think it will happen, but I think it's beyond the realms of possibility. You
yeah.
know, but I think I mean, I'd put it at less than 10%, but I think it he's going to move. If
Mm.
Barcelona came in tomorrow, he moves, and I wonder. That means I think there's a possibility. I think we'll be keeping tabs on him. I'd be shocked, but I don't think it's not like Isak, where I just don't see that happening at all under
Oh,
any
that would be my
circumstances.
ideal striker signing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, the
AFC
other
always
one that
says
wouldn't shock
Ivan.
me. Oh, go on. Sorry.
AFC always says Ivan Tony. I think that ship has sailed. I'm afraid.
I wouldn't be signing Tony. You know,
Yeah.
I think the other option, of course, is you could go for someone like Victor Gorkarez and have Jesus as Saka's deputy. He played on the right, you know, to a decent standard, well, more than decent standard at City in those
Mm.
title winning. You know, there's another option. He's again, you know, carried on from the last couple of years with that scoring and assist record.
Okay. Now I know you're not done in terms of streaming yet. Would you like to tell everyone where you'll be at 8 p.m.?
I'm going to be appearing on True Gooner channel at 8, which is why this is at 7, because Bertie is
Yep.
considerate
For
of
once.
others. So yes, you can find me there, and if anyone's interested in NFL and particularly New York Giants, I do a semi-regular guest slot on a channel called Online Big Blue. he's worked in the game, so he's quite knowledgeable. So even if you're not a total Giants fan, there's bits and pieces there that you can learn from Tim. So that's generally where you can find me. But in 11 minutes, you can find me on True Gooner. But
I will say I'm not an NFL fan, but however, when I went to San Francisco in January, I got this.
the 49ers. Yeah, there you go. Very, very, very good side at the moment. Very good side.
Yes, I actually, when I was in San Francisco, they played the game where they won. They went to the Super Bowl against the Lions, the Detroit Lions, I believe.
Yeah. It
Okay,
was
yeah.
indeed. Yep, that was fairly recently.
It's not for me. Apparently, it lasts the length of like 2 football matches, if not more. So it's probably
Yes, but that's plenty of time for drinking.
Nah. Yeah. Okay, I think yeah, an NFL. I might be on board with that now.
It's not as slow as baseball, by the way,
or cricket for that matter. Yeah. All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter or X at Posh Bertie, Instagram at Bertie Wanless, and I also run Gooner Gatherings Instagram account, which is at Gooner Gathering. Lee is telling me to check our super secret WhatsApp group. Why is it? Oh, okay. He sent me a picture of what looks like Mourinho in an Arsenal shirt. That might be real. I don't know. But yeah, it was forwarded to him. I don't know. I'm not sure I can show it, but
given he's lost his voice, I'm assuming it wasn't a voice note he sent you.
It wasn't a voice note. No, I don't think it did. Although I will tell you what, funny story about Lee and voice notes. When we beat Bournemouth 3-2, when Reece Nelson scored that last kick of the game winner.
The greatest Nelson moment since Trafalgar.
Absolutely. He just casually sent me a voice message, and it was him going, "Never in doubt." So yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, there we go. I also run Gooner Gathering's Instagram account, which is at Gooner Gathering. We watch Arsenal, so you don't have to. That's our catchphrase. That's our new thing. And yep, Dom, thank you very much for being a guest and filling in for Mr. Meadows. Yeah, until next time, guys, take care, and I'll see you later.